Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I'm joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
Excellent. I'm also joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good, Henry. I got my wine here, sipping on wine, but ready to spill the tea on our fun conversation.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. We are also joined by a very special guest, also a Christian. We will refer to him as CG today to avoid any confusion. But yeah, CG, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Little cold, not gonna lie, 'cause it's been pretty cold because of the Bay Area, but doing all right.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. This is the Comic Sauce Podcast. Find us at Comic Sauce Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Today is February 3rd, 2023. And that means we are in the month of love, the month of Valentine's Day. And today is our Valentine's Day special episode. So yeah, a little bit different today. We're going to have some fun. Essentially, this episode is going to be a follow-up of an episode we did quite a while ago, episode 105, also a Valentine's Day special episode, but that was way back in 2020, and it kind of left us on a bit of a cliffhanger because a lot of that episode revolved around Porfirio's love life, or lack of, I guess you could say. and the cliffhanger was, did Porfirio find love? Because a lot of the questions that came up during that episode was about, like, can a geek find love? And a lot of his questions revolved around that sort of thing, will I ever love again, sort of thing. And it was very it was an interesting conversation for sure, but there's an underlying sadness to it. So at this point, I am happy to say the answer to did Porfirio find love is a resounding yes, and we're going to talk about that tonight because our special guest here, CG, is Porfirio's boyfriend. And wow, plot twist. But yeah, why don't we get to know you, CG, a bit. We're going to talk to both of you guys quite a bit. Christian and I have a lot of questions for the two of you, but CG, a big question that came up before was, is it possible for a geek to date a non-geek? So I think the first question that everyone wants to know is, do you consider yourself a geek? What is your answer to that, CG?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like pretty much growing up, I've always just been kind of like a misfit about things, kind of also very socially awkward about a lot of things in life. So I just feel like being like a nerd goes hand in hand with kind of just being like a misfit or somebody that kind of like views things a little bit differently from, I guess, typical social conventions. So I've always been kind of like a nerd in like my opinion, or as I like to say, like a misfit about things. Um, I kind of grew up with like, besides like nerd culture, I've always just been like, yeah, I kind of feel like a little bit different and sometimes, but I feel like over the years I've kind of just embraced that now, and it's just kind of an intersection of like who I am, and I don't mind like admitting like, hey, that's like me, that's who I am. Like that's like a facet of like who I am as a person. So yeah, hell yeah. I'm all about like being like a nerd or a misfit, in my opinion.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And I think everyone in the room can kind of relate to that. I think we all consider ourselves
Mhm,
misfits, geeks, nerds to some extent. Yeah, that's very
mhm,
cool. I guess we should clarify a bit. We're throwing around a lot of terms: geek, nerd, misfit, and there are a lot of different connotations for these terms. For the purposes of tonight's discussion, we're going to concentrate on the fandom aspect of geekdom. Yeah. There's a lot of social awkwardness and academic excellence associated to these terms. We're kind of going to focus on the fandom aspect today. That said, CG, what fandoms are you into?
Oh, there's a ton. Like, where do I start? I kind of just honestly grew up with watching a lot of I didn't really have a lot of cable, so it was just pretty much like the regular TV, but I was really big into like watching like Fox Kids and stuff like that. And if it wasn't and in like during that program, like there was like a lot of like Pokemon and X-Men and like Digimon and Batman and Animaniacs. And so I think like as a kid, I kind of it's funny because I jokingly say like you grow up and you make money and now you kind of want to spoil your like inner child nerd. So I kind of still kind of consider myself like a big fandom when it comes down, I guess, to like Batman for sure, X-Men. Yeah, I still like Pokemon, not gonna lie. And yeah, just and recently, I mean, as I've gotten old, I'm really big into like horror, and I think that was like such a big aspect of me of like yeah, watching horror movies and sci-fi movies. So definitely big into like horror movies, and when it comes down to like sci-fi, I'm watching a lot of like Terminator and yeah, and then recently, just watching like The Walking Dead. Definitely like a big Walking Dead. I cried when I saw like the last season. It was amazing. I love it. And then there's just so many. Like I feel like that I can go on. And then recently, like yeah, I just got into like The Last of Us, and it's been pretty awesome. So many. That's all I can say.
That's great. That is so awesome. The more the better, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I mentioned this, but we're going to revisit that previous episode. So
mhm.
I'm going to essentially re-ask a lot of the questions that came up then, and Christian is going to kind of sprinkle some new questions around also. And we're going to open it up to not just CG, but Porfirio as well. And we can all chime in on the discussion too, all four of us. But yeah, like I mentioned from the previous episode, I do have a list of questions that came up then. So I'll just throw them out there. Here's one of them. Considering both Porfirio and CG are fans of a great many things, there are definitely some rival fandoms there. I know CG, you mentioned Batman. And I know, both of you are Marvel and DC fans to an extent, but it does seem to me that Porfirio leans towards Marvel more and CG leans towards DC more. So the question that came up then was, how bad is it to have rival fandoms? Is this something that has been a sore spot at all with you guys, or what are your thoughts there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Please describe.
Let's just cut to the chase. Yeah.
Now, is it the Marvel DC thing, or is it something else?
No, I feel like okay, like I feel like we like poke each other about it. Like obviously, yeah, I'm more of a Marvel person, and CG's more of a DC person. I mean, I grew up with Marvel, with like Spider-Man and Ant-Man and Scarlet Witch and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like CG said, like he grew up with Batman and Wonder Woman and all those cool heroes. But nowadays with like so much like media content out there with like the films and TV shows, it's just the way like these characters are being depicted is what we gravitate towards. Like CG is just he loves his heartbreak moments, his sad depressing stuff, his DC stuff. That's why he's like, I like Batman because he's always sad and emo, and I love that shit. And since I guess I like Marvel, I guess I like the campy Disney happy ending stuff. And
Like high
CG,
positive stuff.
and that's why CG will be like, that's not how life is. No, that's why I don't like it. So we do, I guess, like bump heads about that, but like very, very jokingly about it.
Okay, that's good to hear because the question was how bad is it? It didn't sound like it's bad. It's just kind of a good-natured ribbing kind of thing, right?
I will say it's so hard to get him to watch a Marvel movie. Like if I'd be like, let's watch Captain America or Thor, he'll be like, nope.
That's not true.
He'll
You're a
shut me.
liar.
He'll shut me down really fast.
You're a
He'll be like, no.
liar.
Uh-huh.
We've watched a lot of like Marvel movies together, and I've been open, but not gonna lie, yeah, there was a time where uh I didn't watch a lot of the Marvel movies, specifically like the X-Men movies. And for the longest time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch the X-Men movies because I've always been into the animated show. And then Porfirio's all like, let's watch them. And I'm like, okay. And then so yeah,
And you like them.
yeah. It's been pretty awesome watching
Yeah.
them with you. I guess to answer Henry, like I guess we pretty much kind of complement each other in a way. I don't think necessarily like I hold it against Porfirio that like he leans towards Marvel. But it's so funny sometimes when he does find out certain things about me, like I love DC, and I also love The Matrix. And so there was this one time where he found out that like I'm not as cynical about life and I'm pretty hopeful about things, And he's all like, oh my God, you believe in hope? And I'm all like, yeah, dude, I'm not as like cynical or dark as you believe to me to be, It's not like all horror movies for
Yeah.
me,
That's a good point because, what we're into isn't what we necessarily are, right? Just because we like a certain genre doesn't mean we're like that all the time, right? It doesn't define us as people. Yeah.
I don't know.
I like that.
CJ he feels like the Joker sometimes, just crazy and out there,
I am. I want to blow up capitalism.
Chaos.
Okay, so this goes into my other question pretty well. This came up before also. Is it okay to have your partner skip aspects of your fandom? So going back to Marvel movies, Porfirio has seen every single Marvel Studios film
and TV show.
And TV show. So we talked about like if you're with someone, should you have your significant other watch every single aspect of this fandom? Is it okay for them to skip? Now, I guess maybe the first question for you, CG, is have you seen every Marvel Studios movie and show?
No. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still have not seen Ant-Man. And I just barely found out that Ant-Man's like something really significant for Porfirio. And so I was like shocked. I was like, what? Really? I thought you liked Spider-Man and Daredevil. You never mentioned Ant-Man to me ever. Like, where have you been? So, no, I haven't seen like every single episode or franchise or episode that like he likes. But I think the pretty awesome part about like Porfirio, like he kind of it's kind of like conversational. Like there's an ongoing dialogue where I'll be like, oh yeah, like let me show you this film, or I'll tell him like, oh, do you know about this character? And so there's like an ongoing like dialogue between us. So yeah, it works pretty well. And sometimes I'm kind of like surprised. Like he introduced me to Daredevil, and I hadn't seen like the television show since the movie with Ben Affleck, which was terrible.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
agreed.
And I saw that series, and I was like, wow, this is like pretty awesome. And it wasn't perfect for Perfidio. I don't think I would have like gotten into like Daredevil. It's pretty awesome. So yeah.
Cool.
You know,
Now,
you know,
well, hold that thought for you. Before
Mhm.
we get off this, I want to know what it's like for you, because if CG has not seen a lot of this MCU stuff, does that tear away at you? Do you feel empty inside? Like, yeah. What
No.
are your thoughts?
It's so funny because I was actually about to go
Oh, yeah.
into that.
Go ahead.
No, like I think it's really fun that CG doesn't know about this stuff, like because yeah, since a lot of stuff he hasn't watched, it's so fun introducing it to him. And it's like for me kind of reliving like the first impression of stuff through him, but two, just sharing that like I guess like intimate moments of like him being introduced to something for the first time, um like last year when we watched like Thor Love and Thunder, he hadn't seen any of the Thor movies, I think. And we watched Thor Ragnarok, and he actually surprisingly liked it.
I
And
did.
maybe you're drunk and that's why you liked it. No, but he really liked it. And then I kind of told him how like, that the end scene to Ragnarok uh was like the opening scene to Infinity War, and he was like, well, that was a waste of a film then. I was like, that's right, wasn't it? So I feel like, yeah, it's not so much of a deal breaker. It's really actually kind of fun. Like when I get to, yeah, like show him the stuff for the first time, and it's just really, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I'll just say that.
Awesome. Quick follow-up. Just to be fair, are there aspects of your fandom's CG that perhaps Porfirio hasn't watched all of, or maybe not seen at all, that you're kind of like, I wish you would, watch this stuff for me?
Um,
I know Porfirio has watched pretty much everything out there, but is there anything?
Porfirio is a completionist.
yeah. I wouldn't say like a franchise or a fandom, but I remember the first time, I don't know, okay, so I'll be honest, I kind of grew up with Spawn, and not a lot of people are like such a big fan of like Spawn, but
Glad
I
someone
remember
finally says it. Yeah, Spawn. We almost never talk about Spawn.
Yeah.
right, and I thought it was pretty, you know, I love horror. I love the horror aspects to like Spawn. Kind of reminds me a little bit like Constantine a little bit. And Porfirio is just not a big fan of it.
No,
There you go.
no. Let me correct you there. I, s- I do like the character Spawn. I don't like the film Spawn.
Okay. But you've never like given it a chance though.
Because I've heard so many bad things about it.
Okay, well, aren't we all misfits who are nerds here?
So maybe the homework is CG watches Ant-Man and Porfirio watches Spawn. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Blade. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm also like a big fan of like Blade as well, but I don't
Yes.
think Porfirio and I have watched Blade together. Any of the films together. Have we watched those films together?
Why we haven't, but actually, I didn't watch the first one until like a few years back when we actually decided to watch it for the podcast. So I have, so I've,
Mm.
so I haven't watched Blade 2 or 3, but I've heard Henry's told me to skip the third one. So,
No, I did not.
oh, I thought
I
you did.
no. A lot of people would say that, but I thoroughly enjoyed 3. But you
Yeah.
gotta watch 2. I mean, you're a big Guillermo
was
del
legit.
Toro fan.
Yeah.
And
I know,
he directed
Yeah.
it, and it's great. You gotta
Yeah.
at least watch Blade 2.
Um,
Come
Yeah.
so I guess to answer your question, Henry, you'd probably be Blade. Don't worry, Porfirio, I'm not gonna make you watch Morbius. Like, you know, like you already told me how that is.
on.
But definitely, yeah, Blade, I guess, in a way.
You know what's
Yeah.
another one you've been trying to get me to watch? Walking Dead.
Well, duh, come on.
Like I always said I'll come back to it. I'm slowly getting back to it. I told you that this year would be the year I get back into it, so I will get back into Walking Dead.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, that actually is like bringing me into an interesting question that I just thought of just now with this. So, is there something that you may have introduced already to for you may have introduced this to CG, or CG may have introduced this to Porfirio that you liked, but maybe didn't click as well, or could be vice versa. Maybe you were like, this was whatever for me, and it was, and you know, the other liked it or loved it, you know. So has there been like a split with how much you may like the thing that you're introducing versus, you know,
Like if I
reception?
if I introduced him to something and he liked it way more than I did.
Could be, or the other thing. There could be something that, you know, say you've already introduced, maybe say Ant-Man. Now we're talking about that. Prefer you
Uh-huh.
loved Ant-Man, you introduced it to CG, and CG just didn't not like it.
I haven't, yeah, I have one.
Oh yeah, what you got?
I've been trying to introduce Porfirio. Well, he's watched a couple episodes, but I'm not sure. Are you like a big? I don't know. I like Black Mirror a lot. And yeah, I don't think Porfirio has watched all the episodes.
Yeah, I haven't watched all of them. I've definitely seen a few episodes and I do like it, but I don't think I've seen the whole entire thing like you.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
guess you
then
didn't like him that much then, if you didn't watch the whole thing.
Well, I just feel like, because every episode's it's like its own thing. I'm like, I'll watch it if like I have nothing else to watch.
But I'm with CG. I really like that show. And yeah, okay, each episode is kind of standalone, but I think it's so good. I just kind of put it down, like so I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
CG. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing that I've been kind of indifferent, and I hate to say this, but I'm not the biggest fan of Pacific Rim. And Video loves, he's like married to like those films and the series, and I've just been kind of like, I'll watch Power Rangers, but not Pacific Rim.
You watch Power Rangers or Godzilla, but not Pacific Rim.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah, like oh my gosh, yeah, like when we first started dating, he came over, I made dinner, and I was like, I'm gonna show you one of my favorite movies. And so I put on Pacific Rim for him, and then I could tell like he was just kind of like emotionless on his face, like he had like a total poker face. And then like to kind of mess with him, like after the movie, I was like, So what'd you think of it? And just choose your words very carefully because this is my favorite movie. So like just choose your words very carefully. And I could tell he was really like trying to be really considerate of my feelings. He was like, um, it was fine. It was okay. There was monsters and all that. And then like to kind of just relieve him of his like that like shoulder like that stress on his shoulders. I was like, okay, I'm just fucking with you. Just tell me what you think. Like, I don't really care. And he was like, yeah, I didn't like it. Like
Oh,
he was like, he
Bro,
was
there
like,
was no point. I'm
he was he
sorry.
was like he was like, how is this one of your favorite films again? He was like, I was like trying so hard not to fall asleep during the movie and stuff.
Ouch. Oh,
Or what's
ouch.
that? Or what's that other film that you like? You like Battleship or something? And I'm just like, no. And then Porfirio tries to reel me in. Oh, Rihanna's in it, and I'm just like, so who cares if like Rihanna or Lady Gaga or Madonna is in it? I'm not gonna watch it.
But I guess to answer your question, Christian, like I will say, me not being like, I guess, growing up with DC because of I had like, that mentality back in the day, like fuck DC and everything. Since CG is more into like the DC stuff, and he grew up like, the 90s Batman films with Michael Keaton and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Um, like I guess like his love for the Batman character kind of made me appreciate it a little bit more, even though Christian's been trying to do that for me for years. Being with CG has been like a little bit more like, okay, I understand like why I guess like people love Batman.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's a
bringing you
great.
over.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a great segue into my next question. Again, this came up before, but the question is, what is the best way of getting your partner into your fandom? It sounds like this has already happened to some aspect, but yeah, well, what are you guys' thoughts on that? What's the best
Alcohol and
way?
food.
Yeah.
Oh,
uh,
good answer.
Low key, that is kind of it.
Very
Like
true.
like when every time, like I said, it's so hard to get him to watch a Marvel film that like if I'd be like, we'll get drinks, he'd be like, okay, fine, let's do it.
Cool. Is that essentially how you got turned on to Batman, Porfirio? Talk about that a
um
little bit.
I feel like it kind of was. I feel like, yeah, like it was just like some like Netflix and chill kind of thing. Like, yeah, like we got Chinese food, we got drinks, and like I was like, let's just watch something. And CG was like, let's watch Batman Returns. I was like, okay, whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's actually pretty good, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, you watched the new well, all of us watched the new Batman film.
Oh
Um
yeah, that was a fun
and
night.
yeah. I thought that was like really like heartening. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. We're gonna go watch like Batman, so yeah, thank you so much for bearing with like I guess the dark morbid shit like Peter's not into.
But I mean, like, okay, like, yeah, I don't remember though how I got you into Daredevil though. I feel like it
um
was a food and drink situation.
that's
yeah, it was
that's
probably
the
the
key.
alcohol and food. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're all like, here, take some wine and food. I'm all like, okay,
And
let's
I know
watch
you
it.
and I know you like the dark shit, so here's Daredevil.
Nice. So that's a definitive answer. Alcohol and food. That's how you do it. Although I like what you're alluding to also, Porfirio, because I mean CG's in the Batman and the darker side of things. In your mind, like, well, Daredevil is like a perfect Marvel counterpart to that. So, it's a thoughtful thing, I think a lot of times when you're trying to get someone, into your stuff, um, it's something you don't want to force it, right? You want to think,
Yeah.
okay, what are they into? And here's something they might also like that's sort of related, right? So I think there's something to that too.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Next question. This is a question I've been really looking forward to asking. I think we could have a whole episode on this question. But the question is, how bad is it to have a really weird favorite character? And so
I know where this is going.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like I know where this is going.
And there's a specific character I had in mind, but that was the general question. How bad is it to have a really weird favorite character? And okay, so I'll give a little backstory. The show Game of Thrones, which all of us
we all know where this
have
is going.
watched.
We all know where this is going.
Yeah. Great show and great characters. The characters are written really well in the show, and so well that everyone who has watched Game of Thrones has like a favorite character, or like, they can identify with the character, like, oh, that's me, like I'm Tyrion, he's just like me, or whatever, right? So we've all had these kind of discussions, like, it's either like, who's your favorite character, can you relate to the most, or who do you think's gonna end up on the Iron Throne, right? Those came up all the time when that show was on. So Porfirio and I would have these kind of conversations, and I think my answer was Tyrion. Like, my favorite character is Tyrion Lannister, right? And what was your answer to this question, Porfirio?
I'm pretty sure even CJ can answer this for me.
Okay, yeah. What did he say his favorite character was, CG?
Was it Cersei, Porfirio?
No.
It wasn't Cersei. It was more fucked up than that, actually.
Much worse. Cersei.
My favorite character who I wanted on the Iron Throne was Ramsay
Bolton. So, in a bit more obscure character, I think the casual GOT fan probably wouldn't even know who this person is, but he's a very despicable character. He does probably the most heinous stuff on the show, right? So back to the question: how bad is it to have a really weird favorite character? Like when you caught wind of Porfirio's fandom for Ramsay Bolton, like, did that weird you out? Did that make you think of him differently?
Was that a red flag?
Yeah.
I kind of was caught off guard, but then again, I was not surprised. I'm like, oh yeah, of course Porfirio would root for like this character. Crazy morbid dude.
Yeah, please expand on that.
What do you mean?
A bit.
I when I thought about this, I was like, oh, of course, it's the least person that you would expect, and I'm sorry, Porfirio, but I have to kind of say this. Like, I'm like, I know deep down inside, like, Porfirio is not all optimistic and high tears. There's some really like dark, morbid DC side in him that he doesn't want to let out, but he lets it out when he identifies Ramsay. So there you go.
There you go. And like I said, he's not that well known of a character. So let me talk about the character a little bit. Ramsay Bolton.
Oh, do we have to?
Well, I won't go into
List
great
all
detail.
the terrible things he's done,
Yeah.
and then you can tell us why you like him.
But he is the bastard son of Bruce Bolton, who's wasn't a good guy also. But yeah, the episode Battle of the Bastards was Jon Snow versus Ramsay Bolton, right? And well, we don't need to get into detail, but he did a lot of terrible things on this show. So I think a takeaway is kind of what we were talking about before. Like, what you're into isn't necessarily who you are, right? Just because Porfirio was a fan of this character and wanted to know where this character was going on the show doesn't mean that he is like him at all, but Porfirio, maybe you can talk about that a little bit. Like, I still want to know Really? Why?
Why Ramsey? Why?
Why Ramsey? Yeah.
That's the
Defend your
$1 million
position.
question. That's the $1 million question everybody asks.
Yes.
Okay, like what's the guy's name? The one he cut off the penis of. The
Reek.
Yeah.
Reek.
Theon
Theon Greyjoy.
Greyjoy.
Yeah.
Okay, I really hated that character. I just really, really hated him for how he betrayed the Starks. So like when Ramsay came along and like totally like just fucked him up and yeah, cut his dick off, I was like, okay, this guy's cool on my book. and then I mean, I think, you know, Chris CJ probably knows this about me, but I could hold grudges and like yeah, like I just was like this guy, like Reek, he's just like fuck this guy. Like I don't care for this guy. So like when Ramsey came along, I was like, yes, torture this dude. Like um and then later on, you know, he did some fucked up shit, like kill Jon Snow's son or brother right in front of him.
Yeah.
And you know, like I just feel like he was a genius in his own way for being like such a prick, you know, like being a dick and stuff. And I always would say like he just misunderstood. That's it. People just don't understand his crazy mentality, like the Joker, you know. But then you know you watch the show and he does more fucked up shit, and it gets every week after week it was getting harder and harder to defend him. You know.
Just so good at being evil
Yeah,
that
basically,
he's fun to watch.
yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Go ahead.
Christian, do you have a question at this point?
Yeah. Well, I guess since we just kind of berated Porfirio for a few minutes on his favorite Game of Thrones character, CG, do you have a character like that? Do you have an
Ooh, good
odd?
one.
It doesn't have to be from Game of Thrones if you don't want to, but do you have a favorite character from anything that you find is a little too, you know, goes against the grain?
I'm sorry, we were on the Game of Thrones I guess wagon, so I might as well just say that. When I told Porfirio that like my favorite character was Cersei, he just kind of gave me a blank stare. He's all like, "What?
I was,
Cersei?
I
Out
was
of
like,
all people?"
I know. I think it's Cersei I hated the most. I was like, Cersei, okay, we're done. We're breaking up.
Well, I mean, I could easily say the same thing about Cersei. Like Cersei was very like misunderstood. You know, I just felt that she was like a badass like character that was like defending like her family, her children, her legacy. Yes, it was pretty like fucked up, like all the shit that she did. Low key, one of my favorite parts is when she like blows up the church. I'm sorry, like I was like, yeah, you go, blow up like the state apparatus, like do that shit with the cops too. But I just felt that yeah, she was kind of defending like her honor, and you know, every time that she was going to be undermined or people felt that she wasn't like worthy, she would just come in and be like, no, I'm a badass like person and I'm going to show you. And, you know, and I just remember like that scene where she finally sits on the throne and she's like wearing like this like black like leather like dress with the short hair. That's her just saying like, yeah, I'm a badass bitch, so don't fuck with me, you know. And yeah, you know, she was yeah, I just felt like she was just like really heavily like misunderstood, but you know, she was doing like amazing stuff as a character.
As a character, yeah. Clarification. As
Yeah.
a character.
As a character.
Yeah.
As a
What-
character.
What about you, Christian? Do you have one?
Let's see. I actually, well, I think going off of Game of Thrones, I also ended up quite liking Cersei towards the end. I think she's a character. I think what's great about Game of Thrones is that sometimes you love to hate a character so much you kind of just end up loving them, you know? Like
Mhm.
you kind of enjoy watching them do evil things to each other. You know, it gives you like there's a bit of a morbid curiosity there of like the
Mhm.
ooh, I don't like that, but I want to see more. Get it, you know?
Yeah.
Like I ended up liking Cersei more towards the end, and my favorite character in the beginning was of course Daenerys. And I didn't like where she ended up. I'll say that. She got done dirty.
She did.
Yeah. So, you know, since we were on Game of Thrones, I got to agree with the Cersei. So, I don't know. Do you have one, Henry?
I was thinking about that a little bit. There's a character a little more obscure, but the the Meister of the Lannisters, his name's Qyburn. I always liked that guy, and you know, I don't think he really has many redeeming qualities, but I just kind of like the behind the scenes guy because basically a lot of the Lannister success was due to this dude, like his weapons technology mastery, and he created the zombie mountain at the end, right. So he was doing a lot of shit that I think was sort of under the radar. And I always like the tech guy, the dude in the chair. You know, he's like that guy. Pretty much a straight up evil dude who, like I said, has no redeeming qualities. So like he's sort of my guilty pleasure pick. But yeah, he's my dude. I love that guy. And that
Okay.
actor is on Andor now, so I'm glad to see he's continuing to work.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, let's
Yeah.
move on. So it sounds like uh, with the two of you, Porfirio and CG, I would imagine all the time you're watching shows at the same time. So this came up in the previous episode also. How bad is it to skip ahead on a show and leave your partner behind? Now, in this day and age, it's very common. It's understandable when it does happen. But how bad is it when it happens?
Has this happened before?
It sounds like it's happened. So maybe give some examples and talk us through this.
Go see. I'll let you tell the story.
Well, Porfirio's really big into Disney. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna be honest.
Go for it. Go.
So I watched what's the Cruella Deville, what's it called, Porfirio?
Cruella.
Yeah, so I watched it with like my friends, like I don't know, weeks before he wanted to watch it. And I just remember him. I didn't tell him, but we had like made plans that we are gonna go and like watch it. And then all of a sudden I told him like, hey, I actually have like watched this. And he just kind of like gave me like a blank stare, like kind of like giving me like the death stare, like that side stare, like, you watched this? And I'm like, yeah, I watched it. And he like watched it on his own. And I'm all like, damn, I feel like left out, you know, like I'm trying to watch it with you, you know, but he's all like, no, like I'm gonna watch this by myself. So there have been a couple times I'm like, all right, you do you, Porfirio. Yeah, you know, I'm chilling, I'm vibing, you know, you go and do you.
Yeah, I
Well.
agree. Yeah, that happened.
Has the opposite happened? Has
No,
have you
like,
skipped ahead, Porfirio?
well, I mean, I feel like I probably have, but like, CG just way, I'll just say, like, he's just way more like free spirited, you know? So he's like, okay, whatever, you know? And me, like, I take it to heart. I'm like, this fucking feels like betrayal, you know? Like, like I
Damn.
thought we were on this journey.
Sorry.
I thought we were on this journey together, and here you are, like leaving me behind, you know? But for CG, he's just like, if I do that to him, he's like, ah, whatevs, and he just like goes with the flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's something that, like I said, is understandable in our current day and age of streaming, but certainly it can it can sting a bit, right? It can be considered a betrayal of sorts. Um, but yeah,
Has that ever happened to you, Henry, with you and your wife?
of course, yeah, it's happened, and it's interesting because um, sometimes you have to kind of gauge like how bad an offense is it going to be. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you're not like 100% sure, like, oh, I don't know if she's really into this. It's probably okay if I just watch without it, you know. And then sometimes it's fine. And I'll mention, oh hey, so I watched you know, episode 2 last night. And she's like, oh yeah, what happened? Tell me about it. You know, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And then other times I'm like, what did you do? I wanted to watch that, you know? So communication, folks. It's good to communicate, know like where things stand. Because yeah, sometimes it is okay to skip ahead. Sometimes not so much. Communication, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for
Ooh.
Christian,
Ooh. Yeah.
since you're the single person in the room.
Go for it.
Okay, I guess like one of the reasons we did this podcast the first time was because I guess like I was kind of like insecure about showing like my nerdy side, you know, like there were definitely times where like I was on like on the apps, you know, meeting people, and like I guess I came off too strong about like, oh yeah, I really like this, I really like this, I really like this, and it was just like some folks just felt like it was a lot. You do you think, Christian, like that's something, I guess, like, you know, because you know, like obviously your fandom is a part of you. I could see like the posters in your room and everything. Like, do you think that's something you would show off right away, or kind of ease into it, like as you're like probably going on like when you guys are getting to know each other more, you know?
Yeah, okay, that is a good question. Like when do I show my true colors?
Exactly.
When do
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
when do I pop, say
When
like,
do
well, let me
when do you take off your shirt and take off your
yeah.
glasses and be like, I'm Superman instead of Clark Kent, you know?
Yeah. Here, let me show you my Magic the Gathering collection. Yes, I have
Uh-huh.
all the D&D books. um, so like I tend to wear it like, a lot like on my sleeve. It's always like it's something you'd probably find out about me very, very early on. I don't want to hide that.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Um, of course I have come off too maybe a little too strong in the past. And sometimes I ease into that. I always try to ask I figure my strategy is kind of gauge where they're at,
Uh-huh.
find their fandoms, find what they like, and find the things that, we intersect with.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
you know, uh dating a girl for a while, and actually it's fun, like uh we saw like I think it was like Ant-Man and the Wasp at the time. And of
Hmm.
course, because I asked her, where we're gonna go to the movies. What movie do you want to see? Ant-Man and the
Hmm.
Wasp. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I had seen it already, and but I didn't
Ah.
want to ruin it. So I didn't want to ruin it for her. I thought
Uh-huh.
she would think twice about seeing it because she wanted to see it.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't say anything. But I was like, oh, you're into Marvel movies. Let's talk about it. And then she's like, oh yeah, like this, and like, you kind of see how into the Marvel and how into the movie she was, you
Uh-huh.
know. and of course it's kind of fun, she seemed like decently into it, so I kind of leaned more into the nerdier side of like, okay, here's my theories about what's going to happen next.
Uh-huh.
Like, like, oh yeah, so in the comics.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so like you kind of throw those in there like here and there, um before you start kind of going more into it.
Yeah.
And I try to find where they're at first before
Yeah.
I bring into it. But I think it's like uh I'll also like say like, well, I am, a pretty big nerd. Like I try I try not to, it's not like I want to lie to them about it at any point. I do want
Yeah.
to play it off, but I'll like kind of, it's a bit of an upward slope. And believe me,
Yep.
it's a slope that keeps going upwards, you know.
That's a
Uh-huh.
This
great answer. This question did come up on our previous podcast, and Porfirio and I were just kind of throwing ideas around. We're like, maybe you don't really reveal it until, I don't know, the third date or so. But I think your answer is much better, Christian. Like, it depends on the person. Like, getting to know the person. If there's some great, big, huge geek, also, you can probably just like reveal it right away, right?
Yeah.
But if they're completely not a geek, not into any fandom, then you probably want to hold off for quite a while, right? So yeah, I love that. It really depends on the person. It really
Yeah.
depends. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
for my experience with CG, like like I said, with my experience, like talking to other folks, like it was always like it was a lot for them. So when we first started dating, I don't think I brought that side of me to when we first started like seeing each other. CG, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like there were a lot of drinks in those few times we like got to know each other. And then I remember, yeah, like when you, I guess, like started coming around more to my place, I remember do feeling like a little like embarrassed because, yeah, like I'd have like my wall full of like Marvel posters and, like Marvel comics and toys. And I was just like, oh God, like I just remember being like really nervous. And I don't think you said anything, but then, like, I guess, like, the kind of to the question you said, Christian, like I guess, like, I'm not a big Nintendo person, but I know CG is like he loves Pokemon and Mario Kart, and I was like trying to find that common ground and just be like, okay, like, oh, like who's your favorite Pokemon? Like, what's your favorite game? Like, let's play. I could totally kick your ass, in this game. And
It was only one time, Porfirio. One time.
but I feel like like when we start seeing each other, I feel like I slowly had to do it.
yeah.
Right on.
Here's an interesting follow-up question to that. Does fandom, like, there's kind of there's the style component of dating and putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
Does fandom, do you incorporate fandom into your general sense of style?
like
Like say like your outward appearance, even if, or like say if you're on like
uh like a Spider-Man shirt or something.
yeah, like
Okay.
say it doesn't have to be something maybe you wear, something you
Uh-huh.
exude, something, even if it's something you would say for a date, say like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
see
Hmm.
this movie on a date, say like in this, my early example, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that could be how you do it. Like,
Hmm.
how would you kind of, do you ever show off that you're a nerd in a way, even if it's not in the dating sense? It could just be in the general sense. It could just be your Sunday afternoon shirts.
In a general sense, I do. I have like so many Spider-Man shirts and all that kind of stuff, and it's like Spider-Man backpacks. But if I was to go like on a date with somebody, I don't think I would, just because. Yeah, I don't think I would when we first started like dating, or even like when I would go on dates, just because like I feel like, again, like I don't want to, I guess, like we love nerd culture, but not everybody feels the same way. I feel like some people think like nerdy stuff is like really like for kids and everything. And I guess I just don't want to give that impression when I would go on dates. But that's just my answer. I don't know. CG, do you have any other?
Yeah. Oh, I'll be honest with you. Uh, so yeah, before like I did Porfirio, like I guess one of my like kind of um values is that like if they're into karaoke, they're a keeper. Not
That
gonna
is a
lie.
fandom.
Oh, sure.
That is a real fandom.
Yes.
So I guess answering Christian's question, there isn't nothing specifically that like I'll like wear, but there are certain things that I'll like challenge people on secretly. Um, I'm the biggest person. Like I'm one of those people that I know I get it. Karaoke can be intimidating, but I'm one of those people just like, fuck it, let's do it. Let's get. It's kind of like being like vulnerable and letting like that inner child like nerd out and just saying fuck it. This is who like I am, and I think based off that experience, you can kind of like gauge what that like what the reaction is, like who that person is. Are they willing to like jump on stage with you and like sing with you? Or are they more like, no, I don't want to do that? But it's kind of like mustering like that courage or that sense of vulnerability to just be yourself. And it's so interesting because uh it wasn't I guess until like I met Porfirio that he was all like, oh, I like, comics and Marvel and all these aspects of who he is. Because with myself, like if I ever like met anybody and they saw like a Nintendo, I would be like, yeah, like I like Legend of Zelda, I like Metroid, I like Mario Kart, I like these aspects of who I am. And if they couldn't understand that, well then fuck you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like
that's
this
great.
is who I am. I'm just gonna like own it and I'm just gonna just be who like I am. And I think that's why when Porfirio and I just kind of started getting to know each other more and more, I was like, oh yeah, I grew up with like X-Men and do you know Batman and stuff like that. So it's been pretty awesome seeing those sides of him because I know deep down inside those things have always been a part of me, even though I haven't like been necessarily like out about it, but I've always just been like, yeah, like let's karaoke and do Mario Kart. What else? Let's do it.
Yes.
Do you
Awesome.
do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Oh, plenty. There's so many. I'm really big into like 80s, so my go-to is always Prince and Queen. And if you want more disco, then Donna Summers.
Oh yeah. Great picks.
There, yeah.
But I love your sentiment about fully revealing your fandom, just being yourself, letting your freak flag fly, all that. And yeah, we've talked a lot about at what point do you really reveal it, and I think the consensus is it depends on the person, but I think we're all in agreement that at some point you should reveal it. Like, it might be a little long later down the line, but you know, I really feel like you don't want to keep it hidden forever. At some point, you just got to be yourself, right? And I think that's important. And before we get off that topic entirely, I'm curious, CG, was there a moment? It sounds like there was, but was there a moment when Porfirio kind of dropped the bomb on you where you realized like, whoa, this guy is into this shit a lot more than I thought. And what was that like for you?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I remember when I started going to his place, he was introducing me more to a lot of the. It's interesting because I mean, I did have a few comics here and there as like a kid, but I started noticing more with like Porfirio that like he was really like into comics, and I thought that was like really awesome. I kind of felt bad because I was like, I didn't grow up. I mean, I didn't collect as many comics, you know. So there was like that level like uncertainty, like, oh my god, am I good enough for this? Am I like am I not um should I study up on like all the Marvel on like Wikipedia or something? Like, what's the next MCU chapter?
Well, that's really sweet. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But you weren't scared away at any point, it sounds like.
No. I wasn't like scared, but there were some times that I was just like kind of like uncertain. I'm like, oh my god, you know. But then like Loki, I would be like, he doesn't know enough about Batman, so there I can hold that against him.
There you go.
Very
Found
true.
the thing to hold against him.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, flipping that a bit, let's go to another question that came up previously. What is the biggest fandom turn on? So this is a good one for you, Porfirio, because it sounds like from your perspective, when you were first kind of getting to know CG, you probably considered yourself as the much bigger geek. What were some of the early signs of his fandom coming out, and what was like some of the coolest stuff that you discover and you're like, whoa, like this guy's a big geek also?
Okay, I thought this was really cute, kind of. So, I mean, a big thing about CG is like he loves, talking about like social issues, about like you know, equal rights and like civil rights and all that kind of stuff. And so prior to, I guess, like him knowing how much he loves like his nerdy self, I showed him stuff like about like sci-fi films that like revolved like kind of around those kind of issues, like Snowpiercer. But then like when he told me that he was like a big X-Men fan, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, like the whole like Magneto and Professor X about like mutants being accepted into society. And then like we really connected on that level. We like connected on the 90s animated series because we both grew up on that. And then it was really fun because then like he hadn't watched much of like the live action X-Men movies besides the original trilogy. And so like it was like really fun to show him those. um but like being able to just have those conversations about like how like CG, how you'd say like, yeah, fuck Professor X, I'm totally Magneto, and I'm like, yes, I feel the exact same way, and then how we'd be like, yeah, I like Dark Phoenix, and I'm like, yeah, isn't she badass? Like it was really cool, like nerding out about like the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh-huh. Like once we like found those like overlaps of stuff that we really connected, it was just like, I guess like I don't know, I felt like a deeper like attraction of just being like, yeah, I really connect with this person.
Oh, so awesome. Love that. Yeah, Kristen, you have a question you want to throw out there?
Well, we already kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but what would be the opposite? What would be if there was something that's like kind of what I don't like this fandom, or I don't like this thing. What would be the biggest like gut punch to you? What would break your heart if there was like, it doesn't have to be something that actually happened, or thing. But what would be the biggest turn off?
Mm.
Okay, for me, I don't think this was a big a turn off, but it was hard because right away when we were started talking, CJ didn't really kind of wasn't upfront about him like being like showing his nerdy stuff about like Batman and X-Men, all that kind of stuff. He'd always say like, I'm not big into pop culture because I didn't have cable TV, And so I just remember being like, "Oh God, what are we gonna talk about?" Because you know me, I love pop culture and I love my comics and all this stuff. I'm like, what are we gonna talk about? We're gonna run about things to talk about. So, um, I just remember kind of being like, "Is this gonna be like a deal breaker? Are we not gonna, uh, like, there's only like." Are we going to talk about Star Wars? Are we going to talk about like, these other things? Like, is that gonna actually like be a deal breaker?
For videos are like, let me just ghost you right now.
But turns out that was not the case. So
What about UCG? What's the fandom, the thing you hold so close to your heart that if Porfirio said he didn't like it, even if he does like it, that you would be like,
Um,
no, no, no.
I would say the closest thing comes to probably, yeah, The Walking Dead. It wasn't I've always raved about like The Walking Dead, and I get it. A lot of folks it yeah, a lot of folks eventually kind of fell off The Walking Dead, and Game of Thrones came along, and a lot of people were really invested in like Game of Thrones. It's funny because I didn't watch Game of Thrones till last year. Like all, what is it, 8 seasons? And I've always been like such a Walking Dead fan, and I've always like stuck to it. And I remember not necessarily like that, like I was like upset at like Porfirio, but like I would like tell him like, oh my god, you have, like, for example, I've been raving to him about the last couple seasons on The Walking Dead, and I'm like, yo, these are like really awesome, like please like watch it. And slowly but surely, even though it's been a couple years since those seasons, but I think he finally like started watching them a little bit. And for me, I've just kind of been like, all right, well, thank goodness you're coming around finally.
Slowly but surely.
Right?
That might be a good time for a quick segue because I know Porfirio and I are kind of in the same boat as a lot of people, in that we were big fans of The Walking Dead before. I would say like seasons 1 through 6, 7, that there was a huge viewership, right? And then Porfirio and I, and like I said, a lot of other people just kind of dropped off. We had enough. Now you've continued on to the end. Now, what's your pitch for people like us who left? Like, what's your pitch for like,
Yeah.
why should we continue on and finish the series?
You don't know zombie movies until you watch The Walking Dead.
There you go.
No, I kind of just phrase it as more like, if you want something different from a typical like zombies eating brains, kind of that archetype narrative, The Walking Dead kind of splits away from that. It's much more humanistic. It's much more about talking about just humanity at its bare, or like pretty much like I always tell people like, yeah, like The Walking Dead just kind of questions like, what does it mean to be like human, and what is like your story and like your journey and all these things. And it's I think for me, The Walking Dead is one of those shows where it really like challenges you like as a person, as a viewer, as somebody that's just like, oh, I never thought about that, from like a horror aspect. And I think it kind of sets like a foundation for like horror to be viewed more than like gory like blood. And I think that's like the beauty about it, that The Walking Dead is one of those shows where it's really challenging you as like a person, from a very post-apocalyptic world, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's a good pitch.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Hey, very well said.
Okay, cool. We can start getting towards wrap up time. Maybe a few more questions. This is a Valentine's Day themed episode, so thought I might pose this. What are the most romantic moments in geeky movies? Are there romantic moments? Maybe first off, but if so, what are they? Do you guys get the warm and fuzzies from any of these fandom type movies? Oh, I see CG nodding. What are some moments that are romantic to you?
I mean, kind of just going off The Walking Dead, yeah, like those two characters, Michonne and Rick, to me, like these were like amazing characters that were greatly opposites, and um that kind of balance each other out throughout, I guess, the journey and like the seasons. I mean, we kind of see the growth in both of them um as characters, and it's pretty awesome to see that, how like they create like that balance. Michonne was one of those people that's just like, yeah, screw humanity. And Rick was just kind of like, well, there is some like hope to like humanity. And then further on in the seasons, it went the opposite. Rick was just like, yeah, screw humanity. And then Michonne's all like, no, you have to have like hope in this world. And I think that couple in itself was a really like aspect to what it means to be human, I guess, in a way. And yeah, that's been part of me. And then I don't want to say too much, but if you've seen the last episode of The Last of Us, it's a real tear jerker. So watch
Yeah,
it.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched that like literally just like an hour ago. Episode 3 of Last of Us season 1. No spoilers, but it is very touching. Very touching. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we've had some discussions about this topic before, but yeah, for everyone, Porfirio, myself, Christian, any romantic moments in movies or shows you want to call out?
I got one here. This is the most classic one I can think of. The first one that comes to mind, and probably the example: Superman the movie.
Ooh,
In
good
the
one.
middle of the movie, Lois Lane interviews Superman, and he kind of takes her and shows her how to fly, and they kind of fly around. It's almost kind of like I'll show you the world, like from Aladdin in a way. And then he like brings her back, and I think one of the coolest things is in the same shot, Superman, you know, lets her down, flies away, and then you actually see Clark come back in, going like, "Oh, hey, I missed it. What's cool? What happened?" You
Yeah.
know, I always really like that little moment. It's like kind of one of the most iconic moments of the movie. And then, of course, Superman later in the movie, spoilers, Superman turns back time in order to save her
Yes.
life. One of the very iconic, like comic book romances.
Yes. Oh, definitely that scene where Superman flies through the sky with Lois is super iconic. It's funny. I remember watching that movie when I was a kid. I loved the movie, except for that scene, basically, because I was like, "Ew, gross!" They're like falling in love, But as I got older, I grew to appreciate it, and yeah, you really see Lois Lane. She's she can't believe it. She's like flying through the skies with Superman. But upon several rewatches, you realize a big key of the scene is Superman falling in love. Like that's a big moment where he's on this planet to protect us, but here he is falling for Lois Lane, right? And that turns out to be a huge plot point of the story. So yeah, good pick, Christian. How about you, Porfirio? Anything to add here?
Yeah, I guess like my pick, I guess, is like kind of a little bit of a dark pick. It's so funny. I pick a dark pick, and that's one thing I would give shit to CG about. But like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's that one scene where Andrew Garfield's trying to save Gwen Stacy, and then like he saves her, or like he shoots out his web, and he saves her from slamming onto the floor, but the force, forces her to kind of her body to like crack in the neck, and basically, yeah, like breaks her neck and dies.
Yep.
And then in No Way Home, he has like that like redemption scene with MJ, Zendaya's character, and then like he gets like really emotional that like he wasn't able to save his loved one, but he was able to save like you know uh Tom Holland's like loved one,
Yeah.
and I just felt like that was really emotional and impactful, that he had like his like redemption moment to save like uh a loved person.
Very good call. Good segue to my pick, because it's also in No Way Home, but it's a different moment in No Way Home. In our previous discussion, we talked about some romantic Spider-Man moments, and I did call out the moment when Peter Parker and MJ kiss on the Tower Bridge in London in Far From Home. And it was a very kind of teenagers in awkward love moment, very cutesy. And No Way Home had not come out yet when we had that discussion, but now it has come out. And I think the end of No Way Home completely trumps the romance factor from Far From Home. It's the moment when Peter and MJ have their final kiss, when Peter realizes he has to have Doctor Strange cast a spell and make the world forget about Peter Parker, including his loved ones. So this kiss is like basically the last one. He knows it. She knows it. The sun is setting. The music is swelling. Oh my God, it's so powerful. I nearly cried. And it is followed up by perhaps as emotional a moment. And that's when Peter goes to visit MJ after she's forgotten him. And he wants to reveal everything. He wants to profess his love for her again. And he doesn't. He just walks away. And he does it to protect her. And that is maybe the most romantic gesture of them all, right? He sacrifices his own happiness to protect the woman he loves. It's super romantic. It's super Spider-Man-y. Also, it's like the ultimate Spider-Man thing to do, right? So I love that, and I'm glad I can mention it here, because I know in our previous discussions, No Way Home hadn't come out yet. So
yeah.
as great as that movie was on so many levels in terms of action and fan service moments, etc., it's also a very, very romantic movie. So that has to be said.
Wait, before we close that, I have a few more questions I want to ask.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we asked this question, but okay, Christian, if somebody came up to you and like they know like your fandom, that you like DC, you like Nintendo, you like anime, and they know that that's a part of you, and they try to like impress you with some like I don't know, some knowledge or whatever, and just be like, oh yeah, like I am totally think that that I don't know, like something stupid. Like I'm trying to think like what's Samus, right?
Yeah,
From
Samus Aran.
Samus is like a boy,
Mhm.
like and they try to like pull off that they know some knowledge about that. would
Oh,
you would you think that's kind of sweet that they're trying to like fake it to try to impress you, or would you be like kind of like be a turn off that they're trying to fake it?
that they try to fake it, and they
Yeah,
probably get something, like saying Samus is a boy, or like,
yeah,
they
uh,
refer to Link as Zelda,
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
the name of the
Yeah.
game.
yeah,
It's always
exactly.
a
So
big one,
yeah, something like that.
like, like, I guess like it's something. It's like, I would hold that against them. They're trying to be nice. They're trying to be sweet.
uh,
And I think, oh yeah, that's nice. Like, I don't think I would. I don't think I would like get really. I couldn't get mad at them, of course, because they're trying to be nice, and I think you can see their intentions
yeah,
well, and if you take their intentions well, then um that's the positive thing. That's the real takeaway from the moment. Um, and like, like, I think, I would. There's like, I think there's a nice way. I think, in order to correct people, if they did some research, but maybe they got a couple things wrong.
uh-huh,
There's a polite way, of course, to correct them, or maybe depending on the information, it probably doesn't even matter.
yeah.
But it's like you want to find the meaning behind the words, in a way.
Yes, yes. Good answer. Hey, I
Christians
have
are
a
like
oh, go
Christians are
ahead.
like, just make it up by like taking me to Nintendo World at
Yeah.
Universal.
Oh,
Right.
that would do it. Like that yeah. That would be the ultimate like nerd date vacation.
Yeah. Oh, quick follow-up to that. Has anyone been on the flip side of that? Have you ever BS'd to someone else about their fandom? I don't think I have, but I'm curious. Have any of you pulled that move?
I
Don't
don't
think
think
I have.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
Not off the top of my head.
That's proof that we're all total geeks here. All four of us. We've never been on the other side of it.
I think I may have for music before, like when
Mm,
I was much younger. Oh yeah, it's like that artist. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like them. They have. I like this song. And
right.
you want to impress them, so you learn it on guitar and you play it like kind of bad because you're a teenager playing guitar.
Yeah.
Very honest answer. Nice.
Okay. Okay. And before we wrap up, Henry, I have a few questions for you as being the only married person here.
Sure.
Okay. What is a cosplay couple idea you and your wife would do?
Okay.
Because
Cosplay
I
couple
know you guys,
idea.
I know you guys have done some. Because you say you've done Bucky and Cap, right?
Yes, we did that. We did that. And I
Uh-huh.
stand by that one. That's a pretty good one for a couple. Yeah. Cap and Bucky. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Soulmates. Come on. But other than that, yeah, like I always like the couple cosplays that aren't like the obvious choices, that are like maybe the characters are a little bit more obscure, or maybe the genders are swapped or something.
Mhm.
I always kind of like that. I like that. A little different, like the basic stuff is sort of like, I don't know, it just it's sort of corny to me. So I love it when the cosplayers get a little more creative and are a little bit more thoughtful with their cosplays. I dig that.
Okay. And my last question. Would you say that like you and your wife's is like geekiness is like on a whole nother level that you guys would like name your kid after like a fictional character like Daenerys or uh um Steve Rogers or something like that?
Oh, good question. Very good question. Yeah. Um,
Sure, I named
Yeah.
my kid Link.
Hey, you're laughing about that, but that's been done. Not by me, but that's been done for sure. Yeah, neither of us are really that type to name our children after fictional characters. Now, I'll be 100% honest. My son is partially named after comic creators.
Okay.
I'll say that.
Uh-huh.
So, I roll pretty deep on that level. But yeah, our approach on fictional characters, it's always been like, well, we can name our pets that, but not our kids, that sort of thing. I know a lot of parents do name their kids after fictional characters. It's definitely a thing. We're not that on that level. But pets, oh yeah, all day.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Would
see-
you name your
I feel like I
Anybody?
would. I
Yeah.
would.
Yeah, I might.
I feel like I would.
Like what you would call like your daughter Princess Peach or something?
Not Princess.
Nice one.
I'll call her Wanda. Wanda
Oh,
Maximus.
see, there you go.
I thought, oh, if I have a son, I think it'd be kind of like funny to name him after like one of the Robin characters, like, oh, Jason. It's a very unassuming name, but oh yeah, it's Jason because I'm Batman.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, Christian, do you remember that Batman book I got you for Christmas?
Yeah.
So the author, he actually named his son Robin.
Oh, just
Oh,
Robin.
really?
Yeah.
Whoa. Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
CJ, do you have any other last minute questions for any of us?
No, not at the moment.
Maybe we can end on this, because it did come up. What is the perfect geek date? Any thoughts on this? Maybe we'll just go around. Everyone can kind of chime in on this. Who wants to go first?
Date at Super Nintendo Mario World at like Universal Studios.
Hint for free.
That might be my answer too.
I'm trying to think. Perfect for, I don't know, Christian, you pick first.
Honestly, Super Nintendo World down at Universal was probably also going to be my pick. So I have to, I'm like trying to like quickly think of like another answer. I feel like none of us can say movies because that's, it's always like an easy date,
Yeah.
and movies could be anything. And like, okay, like here's one, like, maybe not as media related, but like, I also love music. I'm a big music nerd. And also I really like anime and stuff like that. And I honestly like a good like low key cheap is like one time like me and a lady were just like walking through a manga store and just kind of just chit-chatting about pointing out different anime that we liked and talked about it. I would point out one and we'd start talking about it and we'd vibe on that, or maybe she had never seen it, and then she would do the same and we would kind of talk about it. And I feel like the other one that might be like more big one would just be a really good concert. I think as a music nerd, I would love to just go and rock out, rock out, you buy some merch of the band or the artist. But even if it's not an artist I've seen, sometimes just the vibe of a really good concert can make you a fan.
Yeah. I think honestly, I probably would just keep it low key and just be like dinner and a movie, but it'll be a movie that I like a lot, like Pacific Rim, and see how they like it.
Make them choose their words, Kim.
Yes.
Let me
What about
just
you,
have a
Henry?
couple drinks, okay, and then we can watch Pacific Rim and
What
a
about you,
couple
Henry?
shots.
Yeah, I like the low-key nature of the perfect date we're talking about. Like Christian, you mentioned the manga store. Porfirio said like, oh, just go and check out a movie. Yeah, I like that. Like mine is like the comic book shop visit, just hanging out at a comic book store, talking comics, just going through comics, maybe pointing out collectibles and just chatting. That's perfect in its
Yeah.
simplicity. Yeah. Okay, cool. Any last thoughts? Maybe, yeah, Porfirio and CG, how do you feel about kind of opening up about all this stuff?
This was, I don't know, I had a lot of fun. You know, like, we've been together almost 2 years. We've known each other for 3 years. And it's been kind of fun just sharing like this like nerdy side of me and just being on this journey with CG. Like, like took him to his first Comic-Con, and go to like all these midnight premieres and stuff. And I feel like, like Henry, I've been open about it to you when we went to WonderCon. I was like just super sad and just been like, oh, I wish he was here, like to share this moment, this like geeky experience with him. So I just appreciate that like I haven't scared him off with my nerdiness, and that we could have like these like nights of eating and drinking and having them, and that we could just, yeah, like have fun and do these fun, ridiculous uh activities together. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well,
Awesome.
you almost scared me with Pacific Rim. So like,
CG, how are you feeling about things?
yeah, I've admitted this to Porfirio, but yeah, I think it's been pretty awesome. I'm kind of, free flow about things and very like open. But what I really am like truly grateful for Porfirio is like he's kind of opened up these sides of me that I guess sometimes I think about him. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I kind of put that like on the shelf, or I didn't think so much of like, yeah, like Nintendo or going to a comic convention, or just honestly being multifaceted and geeking out and being like a nerd and like embracing that. It kind of just was, I'll be honest, it kind of was something like, oh, it's something like on the shelf for me. But I've admitted to Porfirio, I'm like, it's been pretty sweet, kind of opening up and leaning in towards those things and opening those sides of me that I kind of more like, yeah, like let's do it. Let's go to Super Nintendo World. Come on.
He's
Yes.
hinted it so many times now already that we have to do it.
Excellent. Well, I gotta say, it's really cool to see this because a lot of couples are together despite their respective fandoms. But with you two, fandom is kind of part of your relationship, right? And as we've discussed, there's just a lot of fandom aspects to your shared interests and what you do together a lot. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. And with that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Henry, Porfirio, Christian, and CG.